people who hugged the trees. In the days of kings and princes, there was a poor village in Rajasthan, India. It was located on the edge of the great Thar desert. In the village, there lived a girl named Amrita. Between the village and the desert was a small forest. Every day, Amrita ran to the forest, her long braid dancing behind her. She would run to her favorite tree there and hug it every day. She knew that the trees shaded her from the hot desert sun and guarded the village from the howling desert sandstorms. Where the trees grew, there was water. Before leaving the forest, she would whisper to the tree, "Tree, if you are ever in trouble, I will protect you with my life." The tree whispered back with a rustle of its leaves. One day, just before the monsoon rains, a giant sandstorm whirled in from the desert. In minutes, the sky turned dark as night. Lightning cracked the sky, and wind whipped the trees. As Amrita dashed to her house, from inside she could hear the sand battering against the shutters. After the storm ended, there was sand everywhere. But the village was safe. The trees had stood guard and sheltered the village against the worst of the storm. As Amrita grew, so did her love for the trees. When she had children of her own, she took them to the forest with her. She told her children, "Love the trees as your brother and sister. They guard us from terrible desert storms." Her children hugged the trees as she did. One day, while she was fetching water from the well, Amrita spotted several men heading towards the forest with axes in their hands. Amrita heard the leader say, "Cut down every tree you can find. The Maharaja needs plenty of wood to build his new fortress." The king was a powerful prince who ruled over many villages. His word was the law. Amrita was afraid. "They will destroy our forest," she said, "and we will have no shade from the sun or protection from the sandstorms." She ran into the forest and hid. From her hiding place, she could hear the whack of the axes, and tears welled up in her eyes. Suddenly, she saw the chief axeman swing his blade toward her special tree. She could hide no longer. She ran towards the tree and jumped in front of it, begging, "Do not cut down these trees!" "Stand back!" thundered the axeman. Amrita, with her tearful eyes, hugged the tree and pled again, "Please, leave my tree! Chop me instead!" The axeman did not listen to Amrita. He had his orders. He pushed Amrita out of the way and hacked at the tree again and again until it crashed to the ground. Amrita knelt down, her eyes filled with tears. Her arms tenderly grasped the tree's dying branches. The news reached the village. Immediately, everyone, men, Women and children ran towards the forest. One after another, they jumped in front of the trees and hugged them. Wherever the tree cutters tried to chop, the villagers stood in their way. "The Maharaja will hear of this and will punish you," threatened the chief axeman. But the people would not give in. The Maharaja was furious when he saw the axemen come back empty-handed and heard that the villagers did not allow them to chop down the trees. "Wherever we went," the axeman said, "the villagers hugged the trees to stop us." The Maharaja sliced the air with his sword, shouting, "These tree huggers will pay for disobeying me." He mounted his fastest horse and rode out to the forest. Behind him came his many soldiers, riding on camels and elephants. The Maharaja found the people gathered by the village well. "Who has dared to defy my order?" the Maharaja demanded. Amrita hesitated for a moment. Then she stepped forward. "Oh, great prince," she addressed, "we could not let the axemen destroy our forest because these trees shade us from the baking desert sun. These trees protect us from the sandstorms that would kill our crops and bury our village. This village was built here because the trees showed us that there is water here." The Maharaja interrupted with a growl. "Without these trees, I cannot build a strong fortress." Amrita insisted. "But without these trees, we cannot survive." The Maharaja glared at her and ordered, "Cut them down." The villagers raced to the forest as the soldiers flashed their swords. Step by step, the soldiers drew closer to the forest. Suddenly, a big storm roared in from the desert. Driving the sand so hard that the soldiers could barely see. The storm was worse than any the people had ever known. The soldiers ran from the storm, shielding themselves behind the trees. Amrita clutched the stump of her special tree, and the villagers hid their faces behind other trees as thunder shook the forest. Finally, when the wind was silent, the villagers and the soldiers came out of the forest and looked around. The soldiers realized that the trees had stopped the desert storm from destroying the well and the rest of the village. Just beyond the well, the Maharaja stood and stared at the forest. He thought for a long time. Then he spoke to the villagers. "You have shown courage and wisdom to protect your precious trees. From this day on, your trees will not be cut," the Maharaja declared. "Your forest will always remain a green place in the desert." The people rejoiced when they heard the Maharaja's words. They sang and danced long into the night and lit up the sky with fireworks. In the forest, the children strung flowers and bright-colored paper through the branches of the trees. And where Amrita's tree had fallen, they marked a special place, so they would never forget the tree's great sacrifice. Many years have passed since that day, but some people say Amrita still comes to the forest to hug the trees, for she knows that the trees shade the people from the hot desert sun. The trees guard the people from the howling desert sandstorms. And where the trees grow, there is water, and it is a good place for the people to live.